Hey everybody, Bobby here, and I want to talk about politics because the big election in the U.S. is coming up in 4 days, and so and since I focus a lot on connection and relationships and communication, leadership, and personal branding, social media, those are all topics that I'm really passionate about. One of the things I want to talk about is, and from a politics perspective, how to engage people. And I find that on Facebook and Twitter, sometimes on LinkedIn, people are engaging now in massive political debates, diving deep into different issues. And so I thought today I'd take some time to kind of help you and everyone else understand what's the difference between someone who's a rude debater versus someone who's going for open discussion. Because ideally, debate is really win-lose, and discussion is really about learn. And so what you want to try to do is you want to try to learn from people and learn to, let go of your own personal biases, your deeply embedded biases and belief systems and limiting beliefs, and try to be open to different things. And what's funny is oftentimes the people who complain or rudely attack me on Twitter or Facebook about my so-called limiting beliefs, they actually do the exact same thing. They actually do it how they actually attack me in the same way by having a very limited belief. Now, I'm going to talk about several things in terms of rude debate versus open discussion. Let's start with the first one. The first one is, if you're going to discuss with people on Facebook, Twitter, or social media, wherever it is, don't be rude. Don't insult people. Don't insult people. Insult people means you call them names like you're stupid or you're an idiot, or you say you're this and you're that. Whenever you start saying you're this, you're that, you're essentially insulting them. And so once in a while I'll see people on different, and hey Mark, yes, I've seen your post too, where people will literally insult you. And you shouldn't insult them back either. There's no point in calling someone, certainly you can focus on assumptions and behaviors and actions and perceptions, but you can't actually call people names. So I've seen people have called me names on my page. They'll say, Bobby, you're too intense, you're a hypocrite, you're a loser, you're whatever it is. On Twitter they get worse. On Facebook they're usually not as bad, but still they start swearing at me. And so don't insult people. Why when you insult people, you're debating rudely, and that's going to show badly on you versus anybody else. What you should do when it comes to open discussion is offer alternative viewpoints. So if you have a different point of view, and a perfect example is Hillary versus Trump. I certainly support Hillary. I think she's way better than anyone. In fact, I think her and tons of people like Sanders and Kasich and even Jeb Bush are far better than Trump. But that's my opinion, and I express that. Now that doesn't mean it doesn't mean I'm this or that or someone or whatever. But for the most part, I focus on the behaviors and actions. Now. But if people give different viewpoints, certainly I'm open to discussing it. But when you insult people, no one's going to want to hear your viewpoint. In fact, most people are going to basically look at you and say, they're going to throw you off and say, well, you've lost any sort of credence or credibility with what you're trying to say. So offer alternative viewpoints in terms of how it may be perceived or may be felt, things like that. That's the first one. The second thing about being rude is don't make assumptions about people. Oftentimes people say, well, in the expression they'll assume that you're, and even if you are, you shouldn't, right? So even if you are conservative, even if you are liberal, even if you are whatever it may be, it's not appropriate to assume that of someone. So I can't talk to someone and say, well, you know what, you're just a libertarian, you're just a liberal, you're just a neocon, whatever. You shouldn't do that. Assuming about people, usually, and what's worse is as soon as you assume something about someone, it's often wrong for the most part. And when you get it wrong, then again, you lose credibility with your discussion or what you're trying to say. So don't assume anything about anybody. Alternatively, if you want open discussion, ask for clarification. Do you believe this? Are you voting for Hillary? Are you voting for Trump? Why are you voting for Trump? What is it about you, or what are the ideas and policies that work for you? So focus on clarifying and asking questions as opposed to assuming anything. So, and that happens a lot too. In fact, it happened today and it happened yesterday. People start making assumptions like, why are you making assumptions? Just say what you believe. Your argument or your point will be much better noted if you stop insulting or assuming things about people. All right. The third thing, what's your objective? I mean, when you want to engage in a political discussion, whether it's on the comment section on a website or on a Facebook page or on Twitter, what's your objective? Is your objective to win the argument? Is your objective to make people feel like crap? Is your objective to just get your point across and not hear what anyone else has to say? Well, if that's your objective, then it's a wrong objective. Or at least understand that objective is going to be taken negatively by most people and perceived negatively by most people. If you have a better objective really is to, learn, understand. I go on, I'll engage people because I want to understand how they think or how they feel, because I really want to better understand that. That's why, it's important to read all sorts of newspaper articles, whether they're right-wing, left-wing, central, or all points of view, whatever it might be. Know exactly how they think, why they think that. So if I want to connect with somebody that supported George W. Bush back in the day, or Trump now, or even now like Harper and Trudeau in Canada, it's important to understand why they think the way they do first. Before you do that, then you can get into discussion. Because if you work to understand them, then you're less likely to do the first two things, which is insult them or make assumptions about them. So, and because insulting people and making assumptions shows that you don't care to understand them. So make sure your objective is something that's positive, that is willing to understand. And again, if you're liking what you're hearing, you have comments, comment below, ask questions, share likes and hearts, share with people. I want to get people part of the conversation. I want to talk about how to avoid rude debates and focus more on open discussion. The other thing that's important if you're going to discuss on politics is don't ignore the good points that are made. So if someone makes a good point, and just because they're on the political opposite of you doesn't mean that you should actually ignore their points. You should acknowledge their points. A perfect example just happened just now on my previous post. Someone just assumed that I believe that the Bill Clinton meeting with Attorney General Lynch on a plane was totally fine. I don't at all. I think it's bad. In fact, when I respond, I will acknowledge that that's a good point. I agree that that's a bad situation. But that person automatically assumed that, and so by that regard, I guess they don't really want to listen to what I have to say, and maybe they don't even deserve a response. But I still will respond because it's my timeline, it's my page. I'll do what I want. So don't ignore the good points made, even if it's someone that completely disagrees with you. Oftentimes, what happens is the rude debaters will make several points. They'll completely ignore all those things. Well, yeah, Mark, empathy does take effort, and most are the ladies are closed-minded. I mean, I just had a comment on my timeline regarding another post, I think, regarding Emailgate and why I think that Emailgate is so far below the Trump gates of racism, sexism, xenophobia, hate, ignorance, fear, politics of divisiveness, and lack of knowledge and unpredictability. But again, they decide to say, well, you're authoritarian and you're this and you're that. Again, that doesn't really help, because if you want to engage people in a really productive way, objectively, you want to acknowledge their points. And oftentimes what happens is, they don't actually, they won't acknowledge the good points that you make, nor will they'll just focus on their main objective, which is just to, get hammer their one point across. So what you want to do is you want to acknowledge any change in your opinion, acknowledge any learning that you had. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. As opposed to just dismissing it completely or deflecting, deferring. What can you learn from this? If it's an article that completely goes against everything you believe in or stand for, what can you learn or extract from that? If it's a post or a meme or whatever, or even a discussion that goes against what you think, what's the learning from that? I know there's other more controversial issues that are really divisive. I think Trump and Hillary are very, people are in one camp or they're in another camp, absolutely. But there's other ones, like I know Black Lives Matter. There was a discussion on my page, and it was very, it was amazing. People that I trust and who have great opinions were on either side. But when they did, I mean, they certainly acknowledged points and they were learning from it. I think that's really, really important to be able to do that, okay? The next point I want to make about rude debate. Rude debaters try not to generalize or speak in black and white things. So, they'll say, everything you do is this, or you're always about this, or all Democrats are this, or all conservatives are this. When you do that, again, that is what's called divisive discussion. It's divisive debate. It pits you versus me. It's win versus lose, and that's why debates usually aren't that great. Discussion is more about learning. Let's learn to understand. Don't reply. Don't listen to reply. Listen to understand. That's a very, very important process when it comes to this kind of stuff. And and actually, it's funny. I was going to talk about politics anyways. And I had another topic in mind, but then because of the discussion I just had on my Facebook post about an hour ago, it seems. Check it out if you want. I was like, well, maybe we should talk about this because I need to address this. That people need to engage in a more productive way, a more positive way, a more respectful way, in a way that betters both of us, as opposed to making people feel like crap, because you shouldn't try to make people feel like crap. If you do, you're losing your objective. So don't generalize about anyone or anything or any group. Try to, and I know sometimes we do a little bit, and I understand that. I mean, there are general things that we have on different things, but again, it should be open-ended, that there's exceptions. Don't speak in black and white all the time. And what you really want to do for open discussions, offer your vulnerable yet imperfect perspective. We all have bias. We all have we're based on experiences. So I'm clearly I clearly have a bias towards people who are racist and sexist, because it's something I'm really passionate about, and it's something that I've experienced in my lifetime. And so when someone like Trump comes along, yes, I am going to fight that more than the email thing. And yes, Clinton, for her nature, she's corrupt like most politicians. People argue that she, has Wall Street in her back pocket. Sure, okay, I'm certainly anti-corporate and I'm certainly anti-corruption, but at the same time, those are not as, they don't hit me as hard as racism, sexism, xenophobia, ignorance, fear, and hate. That stuff really, really gets to me, so that's why I'm so against that. So that's kind of where I come from, but we have to also be vulnerable. One of the things I find, the poor debaters, the poor discussers aren't willing to acknowledge their flaws. When you point out something that's incorrect or wrong, they never say, yeah, you're right, sorry about that, but what I was really trying to say is this. I mean, they usually don't do that. To me, instead, they become even more confrontational. In fact, the next message was, well, it became confrontational. Well, you know what? You're probably not going to agree with anything they have to say. That's confrontational. That's not being vulnerable. It's not being imperfect. We're all imperfect. We all, and at least now, like whenever someone says things like that, I don't let it bother me so much, because it's ironic. It's almost amusing. People project their own hurt, fear, issues. We all have issues. I project my issues when it comes to my food eating, and I certainly project my issues with having dealt with racism and seeing sexism among my friends. So I talk about that. So, but you want to be willing to acknowledge those things and acknowledge when you make a mistake, because I have made mistakes, and I have my point of view has been changed over the years on many different things. I've definitely been informed by many on certain topics, like particularly the environment or Black Lives Matter and racism. Those are things that I've really been enlightened on. Sexism as well. So I certainly think about those things. The other thing that rude debaters do, and again, if you like this, again, comment below, ask me questions. I'm going to be sharing comment topics on politics at least until the election. Let me know what other topics I can talk about when it comes to political discussions and engagement or connection. So comment below and like this stuff. It'd be great. The next thing, rude debaters, don't personalize stuff. Rude debaters personalize things. They start attacking you personally, or attacking your family, your friends, or your group, or your culture, your religion, or whatever it might be. Don't personalize it. But also, don't personalize it. Don't take it personally when someone calls out something. If I say, for example, if someone says, for example, if you support Hillary Clinton, well, you're a naive son of a whatever. Or you support Trump, well, you're just a bigot. That actually doesn't work. That's personalizing for people. Now, if you said, I noticed that you support Clinton. How do you justify that given the email scandal? You support Trump. How do you justify that given all the racist things he said? Now, when you say it that way, that's the better way to say it. But then what happens is people take it personally. Well, you know what? Trump's an idiot, or Hillary's a crook, or whatever you want to say. That's actually the wrong way to approach. Don't personalize it by personalizing on other people, but don't take it personally when people are calling out ideas, behaviors, and actions, as opposed to lumping you with that person. So don't personalize it. In fact, what you want to do is, for open discussion, is all about focusing on ideas, not focusing on ideas and behaviors. Don't focus on the people. Don't talk about the people. I mean, I learned years ago I was going really hard on Rob Ford, our former mayor, and and someone said, Bobby, you're You're really attacking him. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I shouldn't attack him. Let me just focus on my love for my city, my love for leadership, my love for actions and behaviors that are beneficial to everybody, and don't attack him personally. And the same thing here. Don't attack your friends personally. Focus on the ideas, focus on the behaviors. When I respond, I'm gonna focus on the specific things that were said, and I'll ask them to take. And what I'll do is I'll ask them to take it back, because I think it's important for people to acknowledge what they say and what they do and where they make a mistake. Often we all make mistakes, and I do too sometimes. In our assumptions, our logic. A very common logic error that we make, particularly in politics, is anecdotal logic. Just because Billy did this or Billy didn't do this, that means it's okay, or that's everyone does that. And so anecdotal logic error is a very common thing that we all do, because again, we're mostly motivated and we're mostly influenced by the stories of the people in our lives. Absolutely, I totally get that. And then I think the last thing for the difference between people who are rude and have open discussion, seriously, don't be rude, right? Being rude, what does that mean? Rudeness is an intent to do harm or to make people feel bad or to serve yourself versus serving other people or serving the discussion, or to act or say things in a way that come across as impolite, rude, contemptuous, things like that. So, don't be rude. The open discussions, be nice. So when I respond to this comment, I will, and when I respond to any comment, I try to be as nice as I can. So be nice. You be nice, and you be nice as long as you have to. But then there's a certain point where you don't have to be nice. Now I'm quoting Patrick Swayze from Roadhouse. Be nice until you don't have to be nice. Well, what I'll say is I'll be nice. I'll usually give people 2 or 3 times to acknowledge or adjust their statements if they said something rude or insulting or assumption based. And if they don't, I'll just clearly state that, listen, if you aren't able to abide by the rules of engagement for having an open discussion versus rude debate, then I'm going to delete your posts. And every time I've done that for most sensitive issues, whether it's been anti-vaxxers or gun control or politics or parenting, education, things like that, almost everybody will turn around and do it in the right way. So I think that's really important. So as you go along, and again, if you like what you're hearing, comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Give me some questions or topics to cover. I love hearing from people in terms of stuff. And I will, after this, go back and respond to that comment and respond to that tweet where people are saying stuff either unfairly or unjustly, and I'll call it out. I'll call out the comments. I won't call it the people, because I love people, and people project their own beliefs and experiences and criteria and issues from their lives. So that's why you have to be nice as long as you can, as long as you have to. So rude debate, don't do it. Open discussion, go for it. As we go the next 4 days, there's going to be a lot of political discussions. Please be nice. Don't make assumptions. Don't insult people. Don't take it personally. Focus on ideas, behaviors, and actions, and don't focus on the people. All right? Wish you all the best. Have a fantastic week. Take care.